What's up, humans? Welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Thank you for all the nice messages I got from yesterday's video because I was very hesitant to talk about my experience with psychedelics, which goes much, much deeper, and I will continue talking about it. But this reaction from you guys made me realize that it is something that people are interested in, and I'm glad because I do have a lot to tell. So, yesterday when I was doing the video, I mentioned that there is a new footage that I found from Dr. Jacobo Grinberg in one of those interviews he did in Spain at a show called Midnight Sun or El Sol de Medianoche. Jacobo did many of these interviews, and I had only seen two of them online, but I found a third one. And there is a very, very interesting clip where he talks about some of the other experiments he conducted when he was the director at the Mexican Institute of Consciousness. This experiment, it's two actually, it serves to measure the inter-hemispherical correlation between both of the brain's hemispheres, the right and left hemisphere. And he found very interesting data that basically lets you know how a patient or a subject feels when the inter-hemispherical correlation between both of the hemispheres is balanced out. Essentially what Dr. Grinberg discovered with this experiment, which is a scientific experiment, was that people who managed to get that balance between both hemispheres reach a level of oneness. I believe that they experience the non-locality of consciousness when they reach this balance of the hemispheres. And Dr. Grinberg talked about that, and he also talked about another very interesting experiment where he uses people who have a low or an unbalanced inter-hemispherical correlation and people who have a highly balanced inter-hemispherical correlation. And what he found is that when he puts them both at different levels to interact with each other, the person who has a higher inter-hemispherical correlation balance tends to help the other one reach a higher level as well. It's not that because, for example, one is here, the person with the highest correlation, it doesn't go down too much, but the one who is down here does go up quite a bit. So they end up balancing out to each other. That is an indication, folks, of how empathy and telepathy works. It is an indication of people who don't have an unbalanced correlation are usually the ones that either practice a lot of yoga and meditation, or people who are just stress-free, generally. Because we live in the city, we know how the city life is like, and globalization, how it has affected our brain functions in many ways. We've seen an uptick over the decades of increasingly more mental health issues between people who live in the cities, and they constantly put themselves under stress due to work, interpersonal relationships, a lot of different factors. And what Dr. Grinberg found with this experiment is basically telling us that the people who have a higher inter-hemispherical correlation have the capacity to help others heal and get on that same level. And that is extremely important to study, if you ask me, because I can bet you that many of the three-letter agencies and private defense contractors have been weaponizing abilities for decades. This is well known. I don't know why people from the intelligence community and people from academia in the United States refuse to acknowledge this as true. But please, people, remember, for me, one of the earliest and most undisputed proofs that remote viewing is real was when Ingo Swann, who is arguably the most famous remote viewer in the world, may he rest in peace, he envisioned Saturn. And when he did, the Discovery satellite hadn't gone past Saturn yet. We had no idea what Saturn looked like. And Ingo told people who were doing the remote viewing experiment with him that Saturn had a big ass ring around it. And obviously he was laughed at, he was dismissed. People thought he was ridiculous for making these claims. But lo and behold, in the 70s, the Discovery probe passed through Saturn, and there it was, the big ass ring around. So that's more than enough proof that this is real. What I want to know is, why has it been kept a secret for so long? And why are experiments like the one Dr. Jacobo Grinberg talks about here, why have they been suppressed? Why aren't they being conducted en masse so we can all get to a more decent level with the help of the people who have a higher inter-hemispherical correlation? Those answers to those questions, I don't know. But it is very interesting how this information has been systematically suppressed for decades. I don't know what game they're playing at. I don't know what they gain out of weaponizing psi abilities. Only they know. And most importantly, it is very, very evident that the scientists and people within the research community and authors who have tried to investigate this and have gotten too close have either died under mysterious circumstances or disappeared. That is also a fact, because Grinberg was not the only one. There's also Mr. Itzhak Bentov, who famously died in a plane crash. There's also Dr. John Mack, who passed away in a car accident. But as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that I read this multiple times. There were more than one John Mack who passed away on that same day. So I don't know what's happening, really. I don't know why this is being kept a secret from us. But what we can do is shine a light on what is happening and what happened back in the 90s and in the 80s and in the 70s and talk about it. That will be one of the best ways to uncover whatever this is. I have no idea if this whole case and the remote viewing and psi abilities are connected to the phenomenon itself. I want to tend to suspect that it is, because many of the abduction reports and people who have said that they've had experiences, they say that these beings, whatever they are, communicate with them through telepathy. So that means that we all have these abilities. We just need to learn how to hone them and use them. But more importantly, guys, we need to get people on the same page and make them realize that these abilities are real. Because intent and belief plays a major component in all of this. The fact that the majority of people in the world see remote viewing or psi abilities as science fiction is a major reason why it's still regarded as such. For a lot of people who want to believe, maybe it doesn't work that time because we live under the massive impression that the reality is very different to what it actually is. So, yeah, I want to leave the clip of Dr. Grinberg right here.
Well, it has been very interesting to listen to everyone, and I agree with Dominique. The important thing is synergy. And I would like to tell you about an experiment we did in Mexico that is closely related to some of the things that have been discussed. For several years we have been recording the activity of the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And what we did was a program with a computer where the computer received the information from both hemispheres, compared it with each other, and depending on the result of the comparison, gave a series of signals to the subjects. For example, if the waveforms of the two hemispheres were very similar, the computer gave a very low tone, a low sound. If the shapes began to be different, the electroencephalographic shapes, it gave a high-pitched sound in such a way that the subject could know through a sound feedback system the state of his inter-hemispheric unification and also learn to modify the inter-hemispheric relations. It could, for example, decide to increase the inter-hemispheric correlation by moving towards the low sounds, or decide to increase the difference, the lateralization, by moving towards the high sounds. We repeated this on more than 30 subjects for 3 or 4 years because what we wanted to know is what was the experience of unification, that is, what was happening with the psychology of the subject when his two hemispheres began to work in a correlative way. And what the subjects reported in all cases is that as the inter-hemispheric correlation increased and the two hemispheres came to work coherently, their sensation was that of reaching or touching an ego center, a unity, an internal state of stillness, of peace, of coordination. That is, there was an isomorphism between their subjective experience and the inter-hemispheric correlation. In contrast, the less inter-hemispheric correlation there was, the less subjects reported a sense of dispersion. They felt bad. They felt they were not in unity. Very interesting. The most trained subjects reported that when they were able to control at will the inter-hemispheric correlation, that is, to increase or decrease it at will, they began to feel as if they were in an existence, in a state, in an extracerebral location. That is, I don't mean that they stepped out of their body and saw their body, but that they felt that their experience was located in a place that was no longer right-left, but included both. In one experiment, what we did was to interact people who normally remain in a state of high inter-hemispheric correlation. All of us have oscillations in our inter-hemispheric interaction. There is, unless we are veteran meditators, no state of continuity in the inter-hemispheric correlation. We oscillate. Sometimes there is more correlation, sometimes there is less correlation. We have patterns of inter-hemispheric correlation that are surely associated with these states of identity or non-identity, of unification or non-unification. So what we did was to interact subjects that were at different levels of correlation, and what we observed, similar to the transferred potential experiment, is that the subject that had the highest inter-hemispheric correlation always attracted the other subject to its level. This is pre-verbal interaction, right? Without verbalization, simply by the sensation of mutual presence, the subject with a low correlation began to increase it, and the one with a high correlation slightly decreased its correlation until they reached an equilibrium. And I think this is very interesting to think about in terms of the relationships between us humans, how we feel about each other, and to what extent someone's unified state changes the environment.
And this is really wild, right? Let me know what you think about these two experiments. I think we can replicate them if we find the proper equipment and psychophysiologists or neurosurgeons who are willing to go through these experiments. I already know one of them. His name is Dr. Alex Gomez Marin. He's a friend of the show. And I am going to talk to him about this, because if we can find equipment to conduct these experiments and we start doing them more regularly, we could find a way to connect people through the mind and get them on the same frequency level and on the same sensory perception. I think this is one of the ways, guys. So this is a great find. I want to thank the YouTube channel Fractal Rebel, who were the ones who uploaded this 2 months ago. I'm going to leave the link in the description. And I want to tell you guys that if you like this content, please give us your like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, comment. Please comment. I love your comments. And share if you can. If you find value on this, share. Share it far and wide. Let people know what we're talking about, and let them know how important it is to try and find our real skills as a whole, as humanity. I think we can, guys. It is possible. So let's get to it, right? If you want to support the channel in any other way, I'm going to leave a few links down there. Amazon, Mercado Libre, Buy Me a Coffee, PayPal. Any kind of help you guys bring us our way will be greatly appreciated and put to good use, most of all. Everything that's coming our way will go back to invest on the channel. I will give you guys a tour of my set soon. But yeah, without further ado, I hope you guys liked the video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for a new one. Bye.